Population hates you because of your ideology.
You had to be a little bit crazy to be an entrepreneur. So if you had to bet on who you think is going to win the election, who would you put money on?
Today's episode of Model to Masters is brought to you by TubeBuddy. TubeBuddy is your best friend on your road to YouTube success. I use it every day on my channel to get more views and subscribers, automate the boring tasks, and split test my thumbnails and titles. I've done over 3,800 split tests, which have led to results like taking this 5-year-old video that was getting 250 views a day, and just by changing the thumbnail, it blew up to 15,000 views per day. You can get started on TubeBuddy for free at tubebuddy.com/Evan.
Believe Nation, welcome to the Kevin and Evan Show, where I sit down with Kevin O'Leary and we take your questions.
People are tough and mean in business. How do you manage not getting taken advantage of?
Why don't you answer that one first?
I think you're going to get taken advantage of. I think at some point, part of the process of being an entrepreneur is you will get taken advantage of. I think that is part of business, and you take your lumps and you learn along the way. I think, though, every single time that happens, you just take the lesson and you say, hey, I maybe had an instinct, I maybe found something seemed a little bit off with that person. I'm going to learn, I'm going to get better next time. But I don't think that you only have to be tough.
No, you don't have to be tough, but I think it's healthy to be a skeptic. I really do. I think being a skeptic makes you test your own assumptions and those of others around you. And always ask yourself, is this person telling me the truth, and can I validate it? Is there any way I can know with certainty that this is correct? And if you remain a skeptic until you prove it out. And the other thing, Evan, I look at is, what's the reputation of somebody? I mean, over time, you build your own brand. If you're an entrepreneur, you start to realize that you work in a world of many other people interacting with you, and they make assumptions about you, and they learn more and more over time about who you are. You can't shortcut a reputation. You have to build it. And it takes a long time to build it up, and it's very easy to destroy. And the way you destroy it is you start lying to people.
I'll just trust people by default. Maybe that's not great.
Well, you must get screwed over a lot then.
I don't, though. I mean, I don't know. I don't get screwed over a ton. Maybe I haven't built up a big enough, brand or recognition where people are, stopping me every day on the street. But if I'm hiring somebody on my team, I'll just trust them by default, and they have to show me. Obviously, there's instincts, like, do I like this person or not? But once they passed that, Evan thinks you're a good person test, then I just trust people by default. And it rarely, I don't know, it hasn't really come back to really screw over my business.
I've learned a different tact. What I do is I try and bring someone into a company or in my own group for 6 months on a trial basis to see if they interact with the team, and tell them honestly and transparently, look, we don't know if it's going to work. Why don't you come in as an intern? Why don't you check it out? How do you see how you feel? And then if we really gel, you stay on. There's nothing worse than bringing, a cancer into your body. That's the way I look at it. And you want somebody that's on board and can work with everybody else. And I like to hire very slowly and fire very quickly. And I tell that to all my CEOs.
And I think people gravitate of they might be too nice, and then one bad thing happens, so then they go and they say, well, now I'm going to be extra tough.
Yeah.
And then you build a different kind of culture, but that's not actually who you are. And then you try to, it's just finding that flow for who you are and the kind of business you want to build.
But you want to be with people that want to be with you, and everybody shares a common vision. And I think that's the new Entrepreneur 2.0, is making sure that A, you have a social mission that you care and you're all in sync with, and B, you have a profit motivation, because that's how you keep the business intact. And if anybody's not on board with your vision, your direction, they shouldn't be there, and they don't want to be there long term. So I look at it and say, are we all singing from the same song sheet? Let's test that every few months. Let's sit around and ask each other, is everybody happy? Who's unhappy? And just bring it out. I think listen, it sounds kumbaya, but it works.
So we've got 30 people on our team, and I think I'm toughest on the people who are actually closest to me.
Really?
Because they appreciate, because I know what they could be, and they need the push to get there.
Yeah.
Right? Like the people who you're mentoring to carry along the mission, the vision, and have leadership roles in your company. To actually be a good mentor, you have to be hard and push them and show them what they could become, because they might have a limited view of what their potential is. But somebody who's entry level, who messes up, I don't know, just have empathy.
I agree with you, but after, for me, it's 36 months. When you have been with an organization for 3 years, you are ingrained in its DNA, and you are expected to deliver, on your goals and be part of the team and work towards the common good and all of that. But you're in there. It's no longer you're an intern. You're part of the body, and I remind people that all the time. This is not the beginning anymore. We're in the middle of the journey here. And so you have to perform, and if you all of a sudden can't do that, that's tough. Because look, you can't keep everybody. People screw up, and it's one of the hardest things to do as an entrepreneur is to realize I have to take this person out of the game. You've got to be fair to them, but you can't let one person taint the mission of the business, and that's the hardest thing of being the boss.
How do you turn your hobby into a business without growing bored or losing your passion?
I have a definition of what is a hobby and what is a business by saying, if you can't make money within 36 months, which is 3 years, which is a big number for me in business, it's just a hobby and it's not a business. If you're still losing money after 3 years, you should treat it for what it is, a use of your time that is not productive, but you enjoy it for other reasons. If you can't make it profitable after all that time, it is just a hobby. And if you're using all your time to spend on it, then you're not an entrepreneur. You're not creating something where you can create jobs and provide services to people. You're just wasting your time and wasting your money. Take it behind the barn and shoot it. That's my definition.
So I like to say, I'm pretty aligned. I like to say that if you've got something that you love doing but doesn't bring value to the market, then it's just a hobby. And it's great, it could be fulfilling, but it's not a business. But if you're just chasing opportunity and you don't love it, you're also going to lose because you're going up against people who love that thing. It's a big reason why I think a lot of entrepreneurs fail is they're going to start a YouTube channel, they're going to start a podcast, they're going to start a whatever business, but they never actually liked it. They just think it's the hot opportunity for the year.
Well, that is interesting.
And then they fail. I think a lot of people fail because they're not the right person. The opportunity is fantastic, but they never actually love the thing. Where if you look at the entrepreneurs who win, they have a deep love for the actual work that they're doing. And so it's that combination, right? If it's just an opportunity, you don't love it, you're not going to win. And if it's just something you love and there's no demand for it, then you've got a hobby. And it's in that marriage of what do you love doing that can also be of value to other people that are willing to pay you for.
That's a really good observation because you're always competing with somebody somewhere, and these days it's global. And you got to make the assumption that the person you're competing with really loves what they do, and they're willing to work 25 hours a day. And if you're not totally in love with it, you're screwed. So I would argue to an entrepreneur, don't start something that you don't have a lot of passion for, because you're going to fail because you're going to be competing with people who do have that passion, who are motivated. And I see that happen all the time. They just get bored. And maybe I've invested in them and I can see that they're just burned out. And if that happens, quite often I would say, probably about 30% of the time, after a while and they realize, boy, this is hard work. Yeah, it is hard work. Running a business is really hard work. But it's an added bonus if you can get up in the morning and say, I can't wait to go fight the fight. Because with certainty your competitor's doing that. So that is a theme that we can both agree on. You better love it, baby.
And you mentioned burnout in there. It's a topic now for a lot of YouTubers, feeling burnt out from creating content. Yeah. And I think that's just, a lot of entrepreneurs face burnout. But if you love what you do, I think it's so much easier. I mean, I've been on YouTube for 11 years. We've done 6,000 public videos, 11,000 or so, total videos. And I still wake up every day and we're doing it.
And that's amazing. I mean, you think about it, you've turned yourself into a broadcast entity. That's really what it is. And content is king, and you have to keep it fresh and interesting and different all the time. I get that. But I have to admit, I'm a newbie onto YouTube, but it's a very powerful vehicle. That's what I've learned. And it draws a new demographic. I mean, I play on all of the social media platforms. I have millions of followers. But one thing I think you and I can agree on, it is a different channel in terms of what it provides and the demographic it achieves and reaches. And I get it. I totally get it now. I kind of ignored it for a few years, but now I can't. So it's become a real element to my weekly routine. I try and grab from experiences that I'm having during the week and put it onto my YouTube channel, and I'm brutally honest about it. And sometimes I stir the pot and it happens. What can you do? You know that already.
I love it.
What things should one learn by reading about our firsthand experience before becoming an entrepreneur? I mean, I think the question is, how do you prepare yourself to be an entrepreneur?
I think surrounding yourself with entrepreneurs is the easiest way. I think there's some you can learn. I think watching YouTube videos, being around Shark Tank, reading books like this, I think that starts to give you the framework. But I think the more you're actually around entrepreneurs, if that's what your goal is, to be an entrepreneur, be around the people who are doing the thing that you want to do. You know, I went to University of Toronto here and did 4 years undergrad, Bachelor of Commerce, Finance. I didn't know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur at the time. So I'm still grateful that I went. But I took a 4th year entrepreneurship course, and the professor teaching it barely had a side business on his own. It's like, well, who are you learning from, right? So if you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or get those degrees, then yeah, you need to be going to college and learn, because that degree matters. But I don't think you can learn it from a textbook or learn it from a class. I think the best thing to do is to be around people who are doing it. If you have entrepreneurs in your family, or there's a friend of yours, hang out at their shop just to see how they're doing it. And if you don't have that, then aspirational mentors is what I would call watching YouTube videos or reading books written ideally by the person, not just about them, but by the person sharing their lessons to have it be part of your ecosystem.
I've come to a new place in my understanding what works and doesn't. I also went through the educational process. I did an MBA, and people ask me, does that have anything to do with success or failure? And I say, no, it doesn't. I don't remember a single thing I learned there for the 2 years except the people I met that now are out there in the world as bankers and lawyers and whatever else they are, and I use them as my database of contacts to help build my businesses. So I think that was important, but the classes, I forget completely what it was about. I will say one thing though, I've learned something from what the Europeans do, Evan, and listen to this. In Switzerland, I have a stepfather who's Swiss, he lives in Geneva, Switzerland. I've been going over there for 40 years, back and forth. Take a company like Nestle. They offer an internship program that they call an apprentice program over there. It's almost like the sorcerer's helper in a Disney movie. In high school, if you think you like the food industry, maybe, Nestle's a global food company, they'll let you come in and work on weekends and afternoons after school to see what it's like in the real world, even though you're just a teenager. Why are they doing that? They're trying to figure out who is going to be the next asset for their company that is going to be someone who attaches themselves to the business maybe long term. So they get to try you out, you get to try them out, they pay you a small stipend, but that's an apprenticeship. What an opportunity for you. You're a teen, you're sitting in a meeting with a bunch of managers, you're absorbing all that stuff, and you're learning. Why the hell don't we do that in North America? Because maybe 1 out of 10 is the right person, but once you're indoctrinated, if that's the right word, into call it the Nestle program, you're a Nestleite. You're there. They want you, you want them, and away your career goes. I love it. I think every company in North America should take that program on and offer this opportunity to kids in their teens and say, look, you want to see what work is? You want to see what it's like? Get in here. But it also gives you a chance as an entrepreneur to say, I understand the corporate structure, and now I want to try something a little different on my own, but I will have had that base of information, not only about what it's like, but that sector. If you love the food industry, you're with the El Supremo, and you're learning about it, and then one day you can split off and say, hey, Nestle, I'm going to build this food business. You want to buy it from me after it gets to 50 million? That's the program I like.
This question is like, how do I prepare for my first kiss?
Right.
And you can watch videos and you can read a book.
I agree with you.
But at some point, you just got to kiss, and then you feel what it's actually like.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's how you prepare for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I also would say, tell me if you agree with this. I don't think everybody should be an entrepreneur. I actually think only a third of the people can handle what it takes, because it is a really hard gig. People try to make it exciting. Running a business is a bitch. It's hard as hell, and not everybody wants to sacrifice the lifestyle requirement to do it. You're giving up a lot. I mean, you're not going to hit all those soccer games on the weekend. You're not going to go to the family picnic. You're going to miss a lot of stuff in your young kids' lives because you're just working, because your competitor's working that way. I think it's a sacrifice.
I think everybody should try. I think it's worth knowing. Like, I think, how do you know if you like
What age
sushi?
do you recommend they try?
As soon as possible. Like, I think getting exposure is great. How do you know what your favorite food is if you haven't tried sushi? You could judge sushi and say, well, that's raw fish wrapped in seaweed. That sounds disgusting, right? If you think it through, it doesn't sound like it's very appetizing, but then you try it, like, oh, that tastes really good. I think we prejudge things and then we settle on a path before actually knowing what you could be great at. So I think everybody should try entrepreneurship. I agree, I don't think it's for everybody. I think it's becoming a lot easier. I think, if I'm 40 right now, if I look at the opportunities for me as a 40-year-old compared to my parents when they were 40, it's a world of difference.
Well, you have more opportunity now because you're in a digital world.
Exactly. So it's easier. You kind of had to be crazy. When my parents were 40, you had to be a little bit crazy to be an entrepreneur. You had to not fit into the system. And so you had no other option but to be an entrepreneur. Where now, I could have a corporate job. I could succeed in the corporate world, but I choose not to. And so it's opening up for a lot more people. Whether the number's a third or a half or a fifth, I agree that not everybody should be an entrepreneur as a profession, but I think everybody should try it, just like everybody should try sushi.
Well, maybe that's the best way to do it, but I would assume if I reverse engineer that everybody can try it, but only 1/3 is going to make it.
Sure.
And it's okay to fail. I'd rather invest in somebody that's felt the sting of failure and understood what they did wrong. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, that's for sure. And I made plenty, but luckily more has worked out than has failed. And so, I still have capital to continue to put to work because every once in a while I get a big hit. I kind of think about it, and now in retrospect, what a sacrifice of life it is in some regards. But is it worth it? Yeah, you buy your freedom if you're successful. Do whatever you like. The reason I'm here is I want to be here. I don't have to be here, either do you. Yeah. So that's a great thing, and I would say that's worth everybody pursuing. So I think we can agree on that. It's noble.
I think everybody should try sushi. You just might be allergic to it.
What is the most helpful college degree to help you do well as an entrepreneur?
I don't think there is one. Just, again, I went to University of Toronto, my fourth year level. U of T is one of the top 10 universities in North America. It's up there. And fourth year, highest level undergrad class, I have a professor teaching me about entrepreneurship who hasn't built a successful business. And our task in the class is to make our own business plan. I was already running my business. I had a biotech software company while being in school. And everybody else is thinking, oh, start a business. Okay, I'm going to make a coffee shop or just like the basic stuff. And I learned nothing. I mean, he's talking to the class and I'm on my laptop working on my business, right? Like this is not very helpful. I don't think a lot of the education maps to you being successful as an entrepreneur. I think the connections, the resources, one of the things I wish I did more was connect to the entrepreneur alumni from U of T. So I'd look at who are the people who've graduated from U of T, from your university or college, who've gone on to do the thing that you want to do, and then say, hey, I'm an undergrad at your alumni school. Would you be open to having a coffee with me? And you might get a yes for somebody who otherwise would not have any time with you just because you're at that school. I think that's your biggest hack, more than any degree that you're going to get. It just doesn't map. Your actions have to map to your ambitions. I don't see the paper mapping to success as an entrepreneur.
I'm going to answer a slightly different way. If 3 years ago when I was asked this question, what degree gives you the highest chance of success in a career, not necessarily entrepreneurial, but it would apply to entrepreneurship too. Number one would have been engineering, number two engineering, number three engineering. And why do I say that? Because I teach a lot now, I lecture a lot at places like Waterloo, McGill, MIT, Notre Dame, Temple, and I enjoy those classes, Harvard. And generally it's the graduating cohort of engineers, and about a third of those classes go on to take their ideas, turn them into patents, turn them into businesses. They form partnerships to do it. But I've changed my mind in the last 2 years, and I'll tell you why, Evan. I now have investments in over 50 companies in Mexico, Canada, the United States. They're all over the map. I mean, in almost every geography, in almost every sector. And since the pandemic hit, which has only been 6 months now, the number one demand I have for my companies are people that can take the concept of the business and tell a story about it. produce a video, do really rich photography, build out 59-second, 39-second, 29-second videos, 14-second videos to plaster all over social media to sell product direct to customer. So if you're a graduate from the arts, or you're a writer, or you're a photographer, or an editor, or videographer, all of a sudden I'm paying you $150,000. And I would have thought I could have hired you for nothing because you were a starving artist. I was wrong. Storytelling is part of the attribute of the new digital 2.0 economy. And it requires the arts to tell that story. It's a whole new ball game. And right now we have multiple editors working for us across these companies. We have hundreds of photographers shooting our products. We found that if we just upgrade the quality of the video and the imagery and the story on an already working website, it goes up by 15%. So it's not just engineering. I would say it's the arts too. Now that's a crazy outcome I could have never foreseen.
But do you think the degree matters? I think like if you're an entrepreneur, if you're hiring somebody, you're going to work with a freelancer to come on and help you. Do you care what school they went to and what?
Well, I hate to agree with you on this one, but I do. It doesn't matter. And that's horrible because you're kind of dissing the educational system when you say that. Why would somebody spend 2 years getting a postgraduate degree in business, an MBA? What a waste of time if you don't think it gives you any value. And it does give you value in the context of people you meet. That's why they've reduced those programs down to 1 year now. You know, a lot of them are a 1 year thing, but you're going to go in debt $80,000 to do it. It has to have some value, I would hope.
Well, if you're going to go work your way up TD Bank or Royal Bank or Bank of America, they still value that. They still pride the MBA. But in the entrepreneur world, I just don't think it makes sense. I don't want to throw...
we do not disagree. I never ask anybody when I'm investing in them, what degree did you get?
Right.
I couldn't get...
Would it be a negative if somebody listed all of their PhDs in whatever academic background? Like, does it count as a negative?
Because I wonder why they wasted all their time doing that.
Right, no, but honestly, like after I sold my company, I joined a VC company for a year and a half. And if an owner came in pitching their business and they all had PhDs, it would actually count as a strike against, that they have no real world experience, that they spent all of their time in education.
Good point. I would rather have somebody that's been an operator and done execution of some kind of business, has those skills, maybe succeeded, maybe failed, rather than have another academic. And I don't want to diss the academic world. It's important. They pursue their own things, but it has nothing to do. You know, you're absolutely right. When I think back in the last 10 years, have I ever asked an entrepreneur that required an investment from me, where'd you go to school? Never. Don't care. I don't care what your dog was called. I don't care what high school you went to. It doesn't matter. Like, can you execute this business plan? I mean, what's the plan? What do you think this product or service is going to do? Yeah, you're right. I totally agree with you. That's a great. I don't want to be negative. I'm not saying you shouldn't pursue an education, but it's not going to determine your outcome as an entrepreneur. That's fair to say.
The politics one. Who's going to win the American election?
Evan, I got to tell you something that I've learned as an investor about politics. And it started in the Brexit vote in England when I have investments in euros, in British pounds, and in Swiss francs. I manage a European portfolio in one of the O-shares ETFs. And I was trying to buy data about the outcome of the British election, the Brexit, so-called Brexit vote. Because if they elected to leave the EU, the thinking was the British pound would diminish in value, and if they're going to stay, it would go up in value, right? And every pollster there said, don't worry about it, they're staying. Not a problem. Wrong. And since then, every single election, whether it be Canadian, Mexican, US, Switzerland, France, there's been many, many contests that have happened, you know, and there always is somewhere where it affects the economics. I have come to the conclusion that polls do not predict outcomes at all. They just don't. They are completely irrelevant to the outcome. Maybe people don't tell pollsters the truth for whatever reason. But right now, you know, if it says that Biden is 10 points ahead or whatever it is, do I think he's going to win the election? No. I wouldn't bet on it. I have no idea who's going to, but I can tell you it's going to be razor close. And I wouldn't be surprised if Trump wins the election, because the polls mean nothing, nothing. And they haven't meant anything, not just in the US, in any jurisdiction you want to test. Even in Venezuela, even in Chile, like, it doesn't work. Hi, tell me who you're going to vote for. Go f yourself, I'm not going to tell you. Like, that's sort of what's going on. Or I'm going to lie to you just to have fun with you. That's what it seems to be.
And it used to be more accurate?
It was. In the 60s, very rarely, that's a long time ago, but people felt a moral obligation, I think, to tell the truth to some stranger who would ask them the question. It was generally done on the street or by telephone. And the polls were accurate within, 0.5%. Today, they're not even accurate within 10%. So the variance, pollsters are actually entertainers now. There's nothing, they have a value for business as far as I'm concerned. But it's great to hear what they're predicting this, predicting that doesn't mean anything. So I'm not pro or con Trump or Biden. I'm just saying you don't know the outcome.
So if you had to bet on who you think is going to win the election, who would you put money on?
My bet would be to go against the pollsters, so I'd say Trump's going to win. That'd be my bet. Whatever they say, I go the other way, because they're always wrong. Not some of the time, 100% of the time. So, and I know people hate Trump and all that stuff, but what are you going to do? It's sort of politics is anytime you go down that road, you piss off 50% of the people. That's what happens. But I'm not endorsing Trump. I'm just saying, who do I think is going to win? Tell me what the pollsters say, and I'll go the other way. That's my point.
Do you see any impact for entrepreneurs, either way, of who wins?
No, it doesn't matter. I don't think the policies are going to change much. The Fed's going to remain accommodative if Biden wins. I don't think he'll raise taxes as he says, because he can't. The unemployment's at 10%. So, I don't think he's going to hurt the economy. I don't think he's going to help it. I think Trump's policies were good for entrepreneurs because he deregulated it. But I don't think he's a popular president. He's very divisive. People go crazy with him. But doesn't mean he's going to lose.
I'm not super following, I'll be honest. If you ask me about YouTube, League of Legends, or salsa dancing, we can go deep.
What about Canada? What about Canada?
I don't know. I don't follow it.
Really?
I don't know that anybody really makes a big impact for entrepreneurs. Maybe,
either way.
Yeah, I don't know. It's also me. I think entrepreneurs are going to solve all the world's major problems. I don't think it's...
Whatever they're presented with, they'll figure it out, regardless of the...
All the problems in the world, entrepreneurs are going to solve it. It's not necessarily right, but that's how I operate.
I get it.
So it doesn't really matter, what does Trudeau do? What does the next person do? I just don't care that much.
I actually think Trudeau's done a really good job in the pandemic aspect of his mandate. I think he really rallied the country around health, which was great. I don't think he did a great job in managing the economy prior to the pandemic. And so that may come and bite him in the next election. And also, when you get deep into your second mandate in the Canadian parliamentary system, there is fatigue. They're just people say, I want change anyways, for the sake of change. He probably runs that risk. He's in a minority government. My bet would be whoever takes him on next time probably wins. And that's just the way politics run in Canada. But Canada is a big part of the North American economy, so it does matter what happens here. It's been too bad for the energy sector, because we've lost almost 500,000 jobs there. That's sad. And how that happened, you can argue till the cows come home, but most economies in the world that are based on energy, which Canada is, have figured out a way to say, well, maybe we have hydrocarbons for 20 years, let's milk that and take the money and put it into something else. We just shut ours down, which was a mistake.
What do you think a policy should be for entrepreneurs in Canada?
Well, they should look for the path of least resistance in terms of solving problems, as you suggested. We have great McGill, we've got Waterloo, U of T. They spawn all kinds of research. Entrepreneurs can take some of these ideas and turn them into businesses that solve for people. But I think what's great about Canadian entrepreneurs is they don't just solve for Canada, they solve for the globe. They're very global in their thinking, which they have to be. We're only 2.5% of the world's economy. This is like the state of California, the whole country. We're 37 million, they're 37 million.
But do you think there's a policy that the government of Canada could put up that would actually make a meaningful impact for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, they should reduce taxes for entrepreneurial companies that are Canadian owned. They should endorse and support those to get going. I left Canada when the Learning Company started to grow. It was the fastest growing educational software company in the world. And then the NDP came in. Bob Ray was the leader. And I think that was in the early 90s. And we went to raise capital in London, England. And they said, well, we don't invest in Canadian companies. You have the highest corporate tax rate in the world. And people don't want to live there because it's a socialist country. I went, whoa. So I went to see the government and said, hey guys, my competitors are raising money all around the world and I can't get any. Can you change our tax rate so I can compete? And they said, absolutely not. I said, well, watch this. I am not a mine. I am not, a diamond mine. I'm not a forestry company.
Yeah,
watch this. I'm going to take all these people and move them in one day. And you're going to lose this entire business. And they didn't care. And so we moved it to Boston and it became the largest educational software company in the world, sold it for $4.2 billion. And I don't think we had 10,000 employees, and I think none of them were Canadian except the founders. It was sad. That's the trouble with bad policy, particularly in a tech industry. And so I would hope, I know Bob Ray has changed his stripes and said he's not a socialist, but I don't believe it. So I lived through that with him. That guy's a socialist. And so I'll just say that right on the record. a little politics in there. Okay. Tips on creating a sustainable business.
I think finding your direct path to cash flow as soon as possible is super important. I think so many times entrepreneurs have these big visions for what they're going to do, and for it to work, you need to have 1 million people using your thing because the economics just don't work out. So I want to find a business model that's going to bridge me to that path instead of I need to keep raising money that's going to keep running out at some point. So you have your big vision, awesome. How are we going to make money? Even if it's like one little tiny piece of it, how can you make money doing that big thing? So for example, YouTube, if we're doing this, if my goal is to have a big YouTube channel and I need to have cameras and camera guy and all that, that's all going to cost money. Great, that'll pay off when I have 1 million subscribers. But if I'm first getting started, I would look at, okay, while I'm building my brand and trying to do this thing that's in line with my big vision, how can I sell my services to Kevin and make money from Kevin being his video guy as well, so that I can fund buying all my cameras to go do the thing that I want to do, right? And people often miss that step and just substitute it with fundraising or feeling like they need to have fundraising and then they never actually take the actions. So sustainability at the beginning is figuring out, I love B2B at the beginning because I think B2C is just a giant money pit to get going. Finding that path to cash flow so that you can sustain your business.
Business to business is a little tougher, but the clients, if it's a subscription service, is a fantastic way to make money, I agree. I'm going to interpret this question a little differently. Tips on creating a sustainable business. I'm going to talk about sustainability as a theme for business because in the last 2 years, I have realized something has changed with the consumer. I used to think that sustainability, green, renewables, all that stuff was a marketing tactic to say that you cared about the environment and to try and get customers to buy the product because they think you did. That's not true anymore. People are making purchase decisions about the fact that they don't want waste. Let's just take plastics as an example. I have a company called Blue Land, and what it does is it crystallizes cleaning fluids like dish soap and like surface cleaners so that you don't have to buy it in a single-use plastic jug. They ship you the tablet like an Alka-Seltzer. You drop it into a reusable glass or plastic bottle and you use it again and again and again and you never throw it out. That business I thought would be very niche and marginal. It came out of the gate and within months was doing $3 million a month in sales. It's a monster success because people actually make the purchase decision on sustainability and lack of plastics going into the environment. That's not a trend, that's a fact. And so now I'm really looking for more businesses that can take, because you're right, B2C is tough. It's really tough because people don't know you're there. But when you have a theme saying, look, our simple mission is give you the very best detergent you can buy, but not in a plastic bottle. That's a message. Mm-hmm. And a third of the population says, that's for me. I'm sick of throwing out these plastic bottles. I know it's doing the environment harm. That's sustainability. So a different twist on the question.
Yeah, you went the environmental way. Oh, I like it too.
Yeah.
What do you think the markup is on that? Like if it's the same product, one's environmental, one's not, how much more will people?
Well, we learned if you charge more, they won't buy it. So you're going to have to figure out how to solve for the sustainability at not a higher price. So Blueland did it by crystallizing the tablet and reducing the cost of shipping 2 gallons of water. That's heavy. So they were able to take the reduction in shipping cost and apply it to marketing. And people said, yeah, that makes sense. You're just going to overnight me the tablets, and I've already got my kit with the bottle that says surface cleaner or toilet cleaner or whatever it is. And that worked. So we're not charging more. It's the same price, except we don't have to throw plastic in the ocean.